Hi, my name is Stefan Bucur. I'm a year 3 student with DT080A, and this is my network programming assignment. So, in this assignment, we are asked to have to create three different programs. One to be able to get data from a specific URL and copy it from the CSV file that's stored there to and analyze the data. Uh, f- Being able to generate some findings. In the second part, we have two programs, a server and a client. These two programs need to this client needs to send a request to the server. Server needs to do data analysis and send back the answer to the client. At the end, we're gonna see Wireshark capture, where we can analyze the information exchange between the server and the client. So, in program part one, first of all, we are asked to go to a specific URL and from there to copy the information that's stored in the CSV file. For this, I decided to use pandas because pandas being two-dimension array stores data in columns and rows, which is very similar to the actual CSV file, and it's easier to manipulate. In order to do that, I used the read CSV file. The data was read and stored in a pandas data frame. Um, the data frame is returned to the main program, where in a second function, the data is taken in. This function is needs to find the highest recorded values, but because in the CSV file and in the pandas data frame there are some blank spaces, the calculation will not be accurate. So in order to have an accurate calculation, uh, I selected this on street, the column which is full of blank fields, and using this this function, all the values from the blank fields will be replaced with 0. Then using the max function on the data stored in the data frame, we can find what is the maximum value for each column. In the next function, we were asked to calculate the average value for each column. And for this, I used the mean function. Then I taking in the average value for each column, I decided to calculate the absolute average, and for this I used again the mean function. Um, the requirements are to display the location with the highest recorded footfall, and for that ID max is displaying the name of the location, and max value max is it's displaying the maximum value for each column. The same is for the location with the highest average recorded. ID max for the name of the location, max for average for the average of each column, and at the end I'm displaying the absolute average. Following this, we're asked for that the data will be written to a dictionary. So First, we're gonna need to um, um, convert the panda series, which are unidimensional labeled arrays that contains the maximum value for each column and the maximum and the average value for each column to two individual dictionaries. Um, then the two dictionaries, the data from the two dictionaries will be written in one dictionary that will contain all the data. Once the data is written in the dictionary, another requirement of the program was to export all the data to JSON file. So I'm opening a new file called footfall.json and writing the data from the dictionary to this file. As an extra option here in testing, because in testing I noticed that there are some issues with transferring JSON files, and at the other end when they need to be open and read, I added the option for the data from the dictionary to be written in a JSON string. At the end of the program, we're calling each function and then the main. So if we want to see the program running, so we can see that the program checked and now is displaying the location with the highest footfall, the location with the highest average footfall, name and number, and the absolute average that's calculated from all the other averages. Now in part 2, the server side, because most of the requirements from this program are found in part 1. Uh, Instead of rewriting the whole code, I imported part 1 um, um, as a Python module, and I'm calling the functions that I need to um, read and analyze the data. F- Uh, so in order for our client and server to be able to communicate, first we're creating a socket that will have the description, IPv4 family, and TCP. We're gonna need to bind the server IP address with the server port in a two tuple, and we need to make the server listening for any incoming communication from the client. Once the server receives the required URL and does all the checks and the data analysis, um, um, the results will be sent back to the client in the form of JSON string, and then the server will close the connection. In part 2, the client side, we're gonna create a socket the same as on the server, but to create a connection with the server, we're gonna create a socket using the server address and port. After that, the connection is initialized to the server, and the URL with the message with the URL is sent to the server using the command send all, the function send all. Once everything is done on the server side, the information is received back in the form of the JSON string, and that's converted to a dictionary. Once the necessary information is found in the dictionary and everything is printed, the client will close the connection with the server. Now we can see how this works. First of all, we're gonna see what happens if the server is not running when the client will send a request. So we're getting a connection refused error because at this moment the server is not up and running, so the client can communicate with the server. So on the server side, if we are running the server will start and is waiting on port 500 for a request from any clients. Now, basically, the server is listening for requests. If the client starts, it's connecting to the IP of the server and the port of the server. It has sent its request. The server already sent the data back, and now after the client went through the information from the dictionary, is printing the name of the street and the highest average, and the name of the street and the record footfall. If we have a look on the server side, we can see that the server is still waiting for a request even after the initial connection finished. So if we try again to connect, we're gonna see in parallel the two windows. The data was sent and received. The server printed is part of information and is continuing to wait for requests from other clients. If we go in Wireshark and follow the traffic flow, we can see the TCP communication between the client and the server, where the client sent the initial request, server answered. We can see the data transfer here in here the server the client send the URL to the server, and here we can see that the server send the result of the data analysis to back to the client. After all the data was transferred back to the client, the server sends uh, closing connection request to the client. The client acknowledges, sends a closing connection request to the server, and at the final acknowledgement, the connection is closed definitely. Another interesting thing I found with this analysis is that because the data transfer is not encrypted, if we follow the TCP stream, we'll be able to see exactly what data was in plain text, exactly what data was sent by the client to the server and the server to the client. So here we can see the URL sent by the client to the server, and here we can see the reply in blue. We can see the reply from the server with the JSON string.